Hi, this is Bishop Craig in Northern Michigan, and this is Take One for the week of May 26. Peace be with you. I have a quiet week this week, which means I hope to get a lot of writing done. So that should be fun for me. On Monday, it's Memorial Day, and we'll still be up in Northern Michigan. On Tuesday morning, we'll head home to Lansing. Tuesday afternoon, I have a meeting of the Academy Committee of the Conference of Bishops on Zoom. On Wednesday is staff meeting. Pastor Sprang returns to us after vacation. On Thursday, I am having a meeting with Dr. Lillian Daniel, who is my counterpart in the UCC. I knew Dr. Daniel when we were both in Chicago years ago, so it'll be good to see her again. And on Friday, Pastor Bright, it's normally her day off, and it will be, but it is a day off that will begin a week of vacation for Pastor Chrissy. So the end of this week and next, if you have Pastor Chrissy things, please route them to me. So that is what the week looks like. The readings, we switch, I think, this week into what is called Ordinary Time. The color is green. And the lectionaries may or may not match up, the Revised Common Lectionary, in terms of the first reading and the epistle reading and the gospel reading, because we do kind of a consecutive reading through each book. The Psalms are matched as a response to the first readings. So it's Samuel. I forget what the epistle is, I apologize. And then it's Mark. And so they may connect these readings on a given Sunday, but they're not intended to. So I always tell preachers, don't force connections if you don't see them, which means you just need to decide what readings you're going to choose. And sometimes it's better to take the arc, let's say, of Samuel or the arc of Mark. If we're doing Old Testament readings, we need to be careful. Our job is to proclaim the gospel and not just to explain the Old Testament. In Samuel, it is the call of Samuel. Samuel is this great Old Testament prophet. And what I am intrigued by this time is that the Lord has to call Samuel 3 times. We love to sing, I, the Lord, and of sea and sky. Here I am, Lord. It is I, Lord. I have heard you calling in the night. Right? If you call me, I will follow. I will hold your people in my heart. It's never that instantaneous. Or rarely is it that instantaneous. It took Samuel 3 times. So we may not always hear God on the first call. And if we are the ones through whom God is calling our congregation or the church, we may need to call more than once. So there is grace in knowing that sometimes it takes time. The business adage is good ideas are never received the first time out. And I think the call of God is the same way. So I said to pastors at our Pentecost Eucharist a few weeks ago, how hard and how far did many of us try to run from the Spirit's call? So it may take multiple times. The epistle reading, the citation I forget, is we do not proclaim ourselves, but we proclaim Christ crucified, and us, we're kind of the servants of Christ. And I think that is very timely because it reminds us that proclaiming ourselves, proclaiming the church, proclaiming our community, proclaiming the best congregation, the best denomination is not the same as proclaiming Christ. And so that's why, people today, especially young people, they're looking to learn about Jesus. They may not be interested in learning about church. So it's about proclaiming Christ. What's our role? At the best, we are clay jars who reveal that it's God's power, God's love. So graciousness, we don't have to be perfect. It's not all about us. But we do have a responsibility to proclaim Christ, to witness to Christ. Yep. And then the gospel reading is all about the Sabbath. And I kind of am intrigued by this one. The good news, and I think that's where I would go if I was preaching this Sunday, is that the Sabbath is made for humanity, not humanity for the Sabbath. And so we have Jesus and the disciples kind of beginning, they're going through a grain field and they are plucking grain and eating it on the Sabbath, which is perceived as work. They are farming, and you're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. And Jesus, they confront Jesus, and he says this, the Sabbath is made for humanity, not humanity for the Sabbath. And then Jesus goes to the temple, sees a guy with a withered hand, and heals it. And again, there's a confrontation because healing, medicine, whatever, is work. And Jesus is working on the Sabbath. And he says, what's it better to do? To do good or to do harm on the Sabbath? And he's doing good for this guy with his withered hand. And they conspire to get him. And it sounds so ridiculous to our ears, but, we have our own trappings around the Sabbath, don't we? The Sabbath is only valid at 9:30 on Sunday morning. The Sabbath is only valid if there's a coffee hour. The Sabbath is only valid, and we can fill in whatever blanks we want. And here it's helpful to remember that God gave the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for humanity, not humanity for the Sabbath. The Sabbath is about gladly hearing or receiving God's word. And we don't need to do that on 9:30 Sunday morning. We can choose Thursday evening and have that be our Sabbath. A friend of mine was a pastor in Cairo, and Sunday just did not work in that culture. So the Sabbath was Friday. When I was in college, my pastor had a Thursday evening worship service when I was home for the summer that I could walk to. I really didn't like getting up to going with my family at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, so I walked to Thursday evening worship. And I think that's what brought me back to church and probably brought me back to my understanding that I was called to be a pastor. Took God more than one time to get me to here. So we are free, I think, to ask, what does it mean that the Sabbath is made for humanity? It's God's gift, and not humanity for the Sabbath, a burden. And as we live into the culture in which we find ourselves, maybe we need to change our understanding of the Sabbath in order to really have the Sabbath. So one of the best partnerships we have in our synod is between Bethany and Kelava and Emmanuel in Elk Rapids, where Pastor Zach Nelson serves, and he is at Elk Rapids on Saturday night and at Kelava on Sunday morning. And he can spend quality time with both congregations, and together they both can move ahead and have their Sabbath. So for me, there is good news, there's opportunity, there's possibility, there's hope, there's grace. In Jesus' words, the Sabbath was made for humanity, not humanity for the Sabbath. Were I preaching this Sunday, I think I would preach about that. So this is Bishop Craig wishing you a wonderful week. I hope as summer begins, you get outside, and may the peace of Christ be with you always. Take care.